Good morning to all of you, social media friends, social media connections, and for some of you who just may have happened to pop into this episode. So if you are here for the first time, ladies and gentlemen, you are here in this episode of Selling That House. My name is Bill. I'm one of your co-hosts. Let me bring in my other co-host, who is doing a double hitter with me today. If you saw the earlier episode, hey, lucky you. You're in it for the second round. So let's bring in Chris here. Hello, Chris.
Hey, William. How's it going, man?
I'm doing well. And you? All good?
Oh, yeah. Getting ready for Thanksgiving. I mean, that's, just right around the corner.
I know.
Yeah, my kids are all coming home from college this week. So, we're definitely excited about all that stuff.
Yeah. The month of November, it seems like every year, each and every year, it's like it slams in the fifth gear. It goes so fast.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, with the real estate market and everything the way it is too, I mean, it's definitely a busier time of the year. You're trying to fit in some maybe last minute sales, trying to get a couple deals to the finish line. And then you have all your holiday and, family obligations.
Yeah. From what I think I see and know, Chris, you guys are finishing the year strong, selling off some of the properties that you've accumulated, right?
Yeah, we're trying the best we can. I mean, selling conditions are ideal. There's and if a buyer were to ask me today, is now a good time to purchase? I would say I think it's one of the very best times to purchase because the climate's not going to get much different, in my opinion. The rates can only get better down the line. The house is going to be more expensive as we go. I don't think that we've hit a ceiling on pricing yet. So yes, buyers, if it's a good time to purchase, if you can find the one you like, it's definitely the time to do it.
Yeah. And with that said, because getting to the closing table, both you and I play a critical role to get those sellers and buyers to the outcome that they want. But for today's episode, Chris, I know you've invited one of your close friends who also plays a critical role in that whole process, right?
I've got an incredibly knowledgeable guest today.
Wonderful.
Darren has been in the title industry for a very long time. He's, worked multiple places and, owns his own title company and has worked in pretty much every facet of it. And it's part of the transaction that people don't really pay that much attention to either, but it's important. It's very important. The deals don't happen without it. And, the consumers have a lot of costs there. So, Darren's a great guy to have on.
Yeah, they have a lot of costs there and also a lot of paperwork to get rid of.
Absolutely.
So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let's now bring in our guest for today's double hitter of Selling That House. His name is Darren. Let's bring him into the room.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Hey, Darren, did you see the picture William has for you on the podcast? I think that was your communion picture.
One of my staff actually saw the picture and said, "That's catfishing."
Well, from what I could Google search, Darren. By the way, nice meeting you virtually for the first time. From what I could Google search, it seemed the most appropriate one. How's that?
Well, it was perfectly fine. I will tell you that picture actually was taken about 6-7 years ago when I was a member at the Will County Board.
Oh.
And so it just one of those pictures just kept hanging out there. So you
just brushed upon something as we get into this, Darren. And as I said before, we're only going to be on for, 20, 25 minutes here, but you could talk for hours because, as I've sat down with you, you have as much experience in the title industry and title agency or whatever the case may be than, anybody I've met, and I've met a lot of people in this now. So why don't we start with, how long have you been in and where did you start?
Well, I've been in the title insurance industry for 25 years now. Prior to, I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. Prior to getting into the title insurance industry, I was in the food service business and had a small restaurant for about 8 years. And I loved it. It was a dream of mine. I was able to do that for 8 years. And after 8 years, I was just looked at where I was and said, well, you either open up another restaurant or you get out of the restaurant business. And so at that time, and that was in 97 or 98, one of my clients owned what was the largest independent title agency in the state of Illinois at that time. And he invited me to come join his staff. And it was a great opportunity. Like most people, I didn't know what title insurance was when I first started. It's kind of this obscure thing that's out there that very few people are able to wrap their heads around. And so, but go ahead, Chris.
What was it? Law Title that
Law
you were
Title.
with?
Yep, I started with Law Title back in the late 90s, and Rick Law, who was one of the founders, is actually the gentleman that invited me to come aboard there. And so I don't want to say it's, and the rest is history because it's been a long road, but it introduced me to something that I could really get my mind wrapped around. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the reward of seeing how many people sit at that closing table and the smiles and the joy that take place on their many times their first home purchase. And so it was something that I just, it's kind of weird to say, but I kind of fell in love with title insurance and the whole closing process.
So when you first started out at Law Title, what was your position there?
When I first started at Law Title, I was a sales rep. It was, I actually, and quite honestly, to be more specific, William, and I'm not sure how well you know the area, but I really stayed in Aurora, Illinois for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And during that time, I was able to be introduced to many, many players. Aurora is quite a large market.
Oh, yeah.
And so one of the things that was communicated to me was there's enough business right here in Aurora that if you run Aurora for years and make those connections, you'll have more than enough clients. And, I followed that advice and did not leave Aurora for probably 3 years. And then started venturing out into some of the other western suburbs, up through the Tri-Cities, up into the Elgin, over to the Schaumburg markets, and was able to take that knowledge from those first 3 years of just being on the road, meeting clients, understanding the process, understanding what their needs are, and able to apply it to basically every scenario that I ran into. And so it's worked out well for me, but it's because I'm passionate about it. I enjoy it. So,
were you calling on attorneys? Is that who you were calling on at the time?
At the time, we were calling on attorneys, banks, lenders, builders. All of them have a certain control a certain portion of the transaction. So it depends, on what the market was offering. I always think about the market as somewhat of a three-legged stool. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that something's always falling off, something's always keeping it held up. at certain times in the market, it's refinances. We're just doing hundreds of refinances.
Yeah.
Other times, like right now, it's purchases. You need to be in that purchase market right now in order to be successful in this business. Commercial's another leg that you can stand on. New construction is another leg. So you have to be able to provide services in all of these different areas because all the legs aren't standing all at the same time. And so, yeah, to answer your question, attorneys, lenders, bankers, mortgage originators, pretty much anyone that's in control of the transaction.
And in today's world, it's the same people that you would be calling on, or has any of that changed at all?
That world has very much changed for us. We have really done a great job, and we're very thankful for folks like yourself, Chris, that we've partnered with as well. We are calling primarily on real estate agents in this market. A couple years ago, I'd say about 24 months now it's been, we saw a change happen in the market where realtors were starting to become title agents. And I've been doing this for 25 years, and I looked at it and looked at the statute and said, why not? This is a great opportunity for realtors to get more involved in the transaction. And what I mean by that is this. Title insurance is a product that many people do not know about. They know that it's required, but it's kind of this black hole that no one really ever understands.
True.
The state of Illinois for many, many years has been asking us as title agents to inform the consumer of what title insurance is. And it's been a difficult task to do that because as a title industry, we don't really have direct access to the consumer. And so I think what's happened in the last 24 months actually benefits the consumer more than anyone. And that is that realtors in this market have become title agents.
Well, it's provided, to your point, it has created much more transparency in the process. There's been, there is probably a little bit more, it happens up front instead of at the 11th hour, so to speak. So when we're going out on an appointment, and we have now made title agency part of our product, and it is because we do feel like our clients get a increased level of what am I trying to say? They get an increased level of service throughout their transaction when we're actually part of every facet of the transaction. And I've learned a ton about title agency over the last 5 years, and Darren has, definitely taught me a lot about it. And it's just something that we've added as part of our product as a value add. It's really something that our sellers really like. They like having one place to go on their process.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, to follow up on that, and I think that the words that I'm hearing is that you've added greater value to yourselves as a realtor, and you've added greater value, and this is how I've seen it play out over the last 25 years. A consumer never calls the title company to ask them about title insurance because they don't know what to ask.
Yeah.
Or who to call.
I've never gotten a call. The consumer doesn't call the attorney because they don't know what question to ask. They don't want to get charged for it. And quite honestly, many consumers are just uncomfortable reaching out to the attorney when they're placed in that particular scenario. But you do know who they'll call. the realtor.
Oh, absolutely.
They'll call the realtor 500 times during a transaction. And so from my perspective, every time one of those phone calls come through to the realtors, it's another opportunity for the realtor to educate the consumer on the title product, which ultimately results in a better informed consumer sitting at the closing table. And that's what all of us want.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I've done a lot of research on this, and in a lot of states there's a third party title agent that is not even involved in the transaction whatsoever. And that's also so at Partnerships in Title, our agents, though, they're not the title agent either. It's an impartial third party providing title agency services, which I believe is also a really good benefit for the consumer. It's people who don't have financial gain in the outcome, doing the title agency work. And I think, the state of Illinois could agree that that's probably the most ideal way, period.
I agree.
But, our experience in working with Carrington Title, has been outstanding. We always get, timely responses. We get educated, that's that, when Darren agreed to, take me on as a title agent, he didn't just, and I was a title agent before I met Darren too. Yeah. So to be understood here, it wasn't something where, Darren came to me and said, "Oh, Chris, I was already a title agent. I found Darren myself." And, Darren hasn't just taken me on, he's educated me, he's educated our staff, and, he's really encouraged us to work in an industry where we really haven't been very welcome to begin with. And, it's been a really good match for me. And I could honestly say, for any agent that is a strong listing agent that does a fair amount of listings, it's definitely something they should look into. And for me, the amount of money that we make doing it is an afterthought now. It really is. It's not, for me, it's, I make our money selling real estate. Right. It's what I do. It's the additional value added service that we can give to our client. It's adding to our product. It separates us from other agents when we're on a listing call. And I'm always looking for things that give us an advantage. Real estate, you can find a real estate agent on every corner, right? You can. And, it's down to now, what a consumer is getting for their commission dollar. And it's a customer service industry. So first and foremost, we want to provide the highest level of customer service. And then we want value add, additional staff, social media marketing, a team of agents working for you, and value added partnerships like William Chu and Carrington Title. It's super important for me, and I've been in this, I look like I'm shipwrecked, but I've been in it a shade less than Darren. So it's, it's definitely something where, the more I get in this industry, everybody says you need to sell yourself. you do, but it's a product that wins.
Yeah.
And for us, we win by having the most value adds, the most touches for a client. That is where we win. And partnering with Darren has brought another dimension of that for me.
We appreciate that, Chris. We very much value the relationship, and I think what the point that you're getting to is that it's very much about the team that you have around you. And we all need to attract what I would say is the best players in the market, because that gives us an advantage over the next team, so to speak. So, hey, we're happy to be part of the team, and I'm happy that your staff and our company has actually worked so well together.
So where do you see the industry going from here with now you're saying that there's realtors now in the industry, and you've got attorneys, obviously still the major majority of the title agents, and then you've got probably things like builders and other companies that they're offering lending services. I'm sure they're offering title services now too. Where do you see the industry going from here? I mean, really what it's done is open up more free, trade, so to speak, or, more competitive landscape in it. I know for the title companies too, that, when all your work's coming from one resource, that's less competitive. But where do you see further change? What do you think is going to happen next?
Well, that's an interesting question that I don't actually know, because there's, what I believe has happened in the last 24 months has been a market disruptor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you can't go buy anything right now.
That's exactly right. And so, I'm not sure where this actually ends, but when you look at the progression of what's happened over the years, you go back to, attorneys were not title agents 30 years ago, and I'm just giving a general number. And then attorneys became title agents, and many years went by, and then large real estate companies started becoming title agents, and so and now you've got individual realtors becoming title agents, and so there's so many different forms of title agency taking place. You've got what we call supported title agents. You've got joint ventures with partnerships, you've got full service title agencies. So when you actually take a look at our industry, I don't know where this will actually end. I actually support disruptive models, because I think anytime there's disruption, it's really better. There's more progress happening, in a positive way. So I'm supportive of what's happened in the last 24 months. And I think that there is a benefit to the consumer. And ultimately, I think that's what we have to use as the measuring standard, is there a benefit to the consumer? And I think that there is with the current model. But I know that it'll be challenged. And maybe they require licensing at some point here in 2024, 2025. I won't, if I have a voice in that, I'd be happy to share it. But I'll probably just wait and see what happens and try to position ourselves appropriately.
Yeah. So how do you feel that, closing costs in general, escrow fees, title fees, things like that. I see things, and this is no poke at your industry, Darren.
Sure.
I'll poke at the real estate industry right now. When I first got in the business, when a listing agent sold the house, they had like a $50 transaction fee. So it was, the listing office, because they have staff to pay and they handle the transaction, it would be like 2.5% minus $50. So now fast forward, I'm in for 20 years now, and now it's $495 on a lot of houses. I charge $375 and I feel bad for it, but I see $495 on like the big brokerages like Remax and things like that, and that's paid by the buyer's agent, off of their commission. Has title insurance over the last 20 years gone like that type of increase?
Well, the short answer is yes, Chris. I'd have to go back and actually look at when the changes started taking place, but I would guess about 10 years ago, we started seeing fees being added to the buy side of the transaction more aggressively than the sell side.
Yeah.
And now, if I were to guess, I would say probably from the buy side and sell side combined, that 60% of the fees are actually coming from the buy side.
The buy side, it is expensive
The buy side
to buy a house. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know Carrington's fees are right in line, if not aggressive, compared to everybody else's. It's just expensive to run the businesses. I got it. But yeah, it's expensive on a buyer. It really is.
Yeah, it really did change, I think, about 10. I'm guessing roughly, but I would guess it was about that 10-year mark where things started changing.
Yeah. And I can certainly speak to that, because as one of the team members in the sport of real estate, right, moving the ball to the finish line so that sellers and buyers transact and close the transaction. As a mortgage professional, one of the major responsibilities that we have, is upfront disclosing all third-party fees
Right.
that affect the buyer, especially when they are not paying cash. When they're sourcing financing, that is one of what I call, it's not the trickiest thing to do, but just like Darren, you mentioned, it's one of the things that certainly light up many conversations with buyers as to what's that? Why that? So I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
So the funny part, William, is Darren doesn't have those conversations because, like he said, buyers don't talk to him direct.
Yeah.
And if you've ever, I know you've been to a closing, William.
Yep.
You get to a closing and you're buying a house, your stuff's on a truck. You're frazzled beyond belief. You're trying to do whatever, and you've been given the DS1 well before and this and that, but again, you just are signing away, and then you get to the closing and you sign away, and you probably never review your fees. I've never reviewed my fees from a closing, and I've bought 5 to 6 houses in my lifetime. Every time I'm doing it, my wife's screaming at me the whole time. I'm not looking at the fees.
Yeah, don't look at the big scary numbers.
No, I'm not looking at the fees. I'm being told where to be and hurry up.
Are we talking about buying homes or my Costco weekend visits?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. Well,
That's a good one, Darren. You cannot go into and get out of Costco without dropping $250 easily.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Well, Darren, thanks a lot for joining us here. It's always fun to talk with you. Great to hear about Carrington Title. I could recommend them to anybody. We've had nothing but great experience.
Chris, thank you so much. And William, you as well. We appreciate coming on, and we'd love to come back and continue at a future time.
Sounds
Absolutely.
great.
So,
You
as
guys,
we wrap up today's episode, ladies and gentlemen, social media friends, connections, or some of you who just happened to trip into today's episode, thank you for sharing your time. If you have an interest in learning more about title, you got the man right here, Darren Bennefield. Just Google search him. His picture is easy to find because that's how I found him. And as part of today's episode, if you might be a real estate professional, a real estate broker that has your unique story of how you sold that house because you are selling those homes each and every day, simply scan this QR code. Chris Labrillo and I would be happy to start a conversation with you and perhaps have you guest in an upcoming episode. So as we wrap up, Darren and Chris, thank you for sharing your time with our audience today. Until we see each other in the next episode.
Thanks, William.